Greetings folks and welcome to the Electromaker show. This is your roundup of all things maker and embedded and lovely. And on this week's show we have a wide variety of things we'll be covering. Some amazing projects including a light up keycap that's been hacked to make meme sounds when you press it, and a wristwatch which is a completely DIY PCB with LEDs on it that never needs charging. We'll also be looking at a very inventive ESP32C6 development board with a nice hat that sits on it to give it Ethernet and power over Ethernet, along with one of the more interesting new products on Crowd Supply, which is a driver for electroluminescent lights, which is interesting for multiple reasons. There's that, an open source effort to get the MPU on Rockchips working, and of course we'll be announcing the winner of our IQAudio DAC Pro contest that we started on last week's show. So with all of that to get through in such a short amount of time, we should probably get on with the show. We're going to start this week's show by looking at a project by Alex Kaut on our Electromaker Project Hub. And this is a project that uses the body of an old keycap lamp, or I say old, it's old stock. They haven't really been popular for a while now, but as Alex mentions in the video that he made, you can find old stock of them. There was a trend, I guess, 10 or 15 years ago for light-up keycap lamps. But Alex saw them and thought, I can take those and I can change them by replacing the light inside them with an Arduino. Okay, well, job done. Not quite. Yes, this is a fully memed up keycap, for want of a better phrase. It's actually quite a clean build inside as well. So the sound is coming from a DF Robot Mini MP3 module, and that is all being run by an Arduino Pro Micro, the 3.3 volt version, and he's also replaced the LED strips in there. And the entire thing is quite neat. It's run off a pair of 18650 batteries. In fact, if we just move on to here, you can see the schematic just here. A couple of 18650 batteries running through a TP4056 for regulating the power, through a switch, and then you have the DF Player Mini and a speaker, the Pro Micro, an extra button for where you actually press it with the keycap, and this is running to the addressable LED strip as well. The bulk of the video is just an explainer as to how you can put one of these together yourself. And as Alex mentions in the video, the beauty of it is that the setup here is pretty much extendable to any soft plastic push lamp. So, I mean, they mentioned that there's other lamps, other keycap lamps you can find old stock of. As I've already probably mentioned, this is something that was definitely a fad, it's definitely a trend. I seem to remember around 10 years ago, maybe even longer, that people had these. Or am I just crazy? But yes, you can still find them. I think it's mentioned somewhere later in this video, or is it in here? No, it is later in the video. They mentioned that you can find various different kinds of lamps. A few words about the lamp itself. There we go. In the early 10s. Now, finding them on sale can be problematic, but you can find them by searching various different things. And I think he goes on to show various different examples of ones you can buy. And also gives an example of how you could use the Arduino Nano instead, and regulating everything to 5 volts or regulating the power down for the DF Mini and all of that kind of stuff as well. It's actually a fairly simple hack. It's a really good beginner project, but it gives you a completely nice finished product. It's already in a case that you've bought for the original use, which is a really nice thing. And I just thought it was definitely worth highlighting and showing on the show, because these are the kind of projects that I really love. It's very simple. I'm going to take this, I'm going to do something else with it, and I'm going to use a microcontroller and my programming skills in order to do it. And Alex has come up with something quite fun. I will leave a link to it in the description. I highly recommend going and watching the video. It's only 3 minutes long, but it does go through everything you need to know, and you get various examples of the button working as well. Up next, we're going to be looking at a different kind of smartwatch, because I'm not talking about the Apple and Samsung variety that allow you to pay things and speak on them, or the fitness variety that speak to satellites and check your heart rate, and in my case it reminds me to eat and drink water if I've been running for more than half an hour, which is useful because I forget. But there is another approach you can take. I've seen a handful of binary watches that use LEDs to tell the time like that, and some people have commented that that's a little bit obtuse, you'd have to know binary well, but I kind of think that's part of the charm. This is something different again. This is a watch designed by Serhiy Trush, which fits into a standard watch casing, although there isn't a glass over the top, so it wouldn't be waterproof. Although I'm sure you could modify it so it would be. Anyway, it uses LEDs and photovoltaic cells in order to charge a battery, and you press a button on it, and it's very simple. It flashes the hours, it flashes the minutes within an error of 5 minutes, which again, to me is fine. If I had this kind of watch on, I wouldn't be complaining that I'm not getting fine-grained details on the seconds. And the idea behind it is that this is something that will never need charging. Very cheap parts, low bill of materials, and it's something that can run forever. Of course, forever is relative. Now, this video is definitely worth watching. It gives you a really nice view of the watch. It has English subtitles on so you can hear what the creator is saying. You get a nice look in the back of the watch as well. What I'm actually going to link, however, is the GitHub page because it tells you everything else you need to know. So, for example, what I don't know if I mentioned already is that this uses an AT-Tiny12 inside it. It also uses a little Li-ion battery, which is chargeable, and 12 little solar cells. The AT-Tiny13. Why did I must have read the word 12. Yeah, 12 LED. There we go. The AT-Tiny13 is what it is based on as well. And it is a single PCB that fits inside a watch case, and everything you need to know is here on this GitHub page. It is wonderfully explained. You have all of the design files so that you can make your own. And I just love ideas like this. And there's a real reason behind it as well. If you look down at the bottom here, there's a mission and vision here, which is to develop and simplify an eco-friendly watch that integrates innovative technologies with minimal components, ensuring energy efficiency is within reach for all. We aim to achieve a world where energy-saving technology is accessible to everyone, where our watch serves as a symbol of environmental stewardship and innovative solutions in energy efficiency. And I think it is worth bearing in mind that there are still places where even the idea of just the time and getting to somewhere at the same time is still potentially not something that is a given. I have been really enjoying over the last year the videos from Russ Cook and his team. Russ is running from the southernmost point in Africa to the northernmost point in Africa and taking a very wide route, and he's coming to the end of his journey. And throughout some of the places they've been have reminded me that technology like this, a watch that is accurate within 5 minutes that never needs charging, might mean that two people can actually agree to meet at a certain time in a certain place and be able to do that. And I know that sounds like such a small and obtuse thing, but living the kind of life that I have in the kind of places that I have, it's not something that's ever occurred to me that is really that big of an issue until it is presented to me in series like that. Anyway, the project itself is available here on GitHub, and I will leave a link to it in the description of the video. Just before we move on, the Electromaker show is a YouTube show, so as such we must ask you to do all the usual YouTube things. So if you're not subscribed to this channel, please do subscribe to it, and please do click like on this video if you like it. That sends a much bigger message to YouTube than us, however, and that will mean that they will recommend our channel and our videos to other people who are interested in Maker and embedded and lovely stuff, or people like me chatting away in an attic. I'm sure that's a genre as well. If you turn on notifications, which is in the drop-down menu next to the subscribe button, you will get notifications when we upload videos, which is not often. It's once a week at most, sometimes twice in a week if Robin puts out a product of the week at the same time as I put out a show. The only exception to that is when we are at places like Embedded World, conferences. And in those moments, you might get a few more notifications, but they're likely to be quite unique because we'll be interviewing people on the conference floor about tech that you either know very well, or maybe stuff that you've never heard of before. So that's all the usual YouTube like and subscribe nonsense. Thank you for being patient with that. If you'd like to support us in a slightly more concrete way where you get something out of it, the Electromaker store is a good place to go for that. At electromaker.io/shop, you can support us directly and financially, but obviously get things in return. That's how buying things works, isn't it? So, for example, the project we just looked at with the light-up keycaps, everything you need for that project, apart from the keycaps themselves, you can get from our store, including the Pro Mini, the MP3 player here, and the lithium-ion batteries, but we also sell a variety of other things from a huge amount of other people. You can see all the usual suspects' names scrolling across the screen right now, including Raspberry Pi 5s. We have those in stock currently, and a lot of other stuff as well, which some of which is really quite esoteric to me because I'm more of the maker end of things. But yeah, if you're looking for 10,000 of a specific kind of thing, we might be able to help you with that as well. Even stuff that isn't necessarily directly on the storefront but is well known and well distributed is usually available. You just need to get in touch with the shop support directly for that. All right, so thank you for your patience. Let's get on with the rest of the show. Now we have a short section where we are announcing winners of various things. We started a contest last week for the IQAudio Pro DAC, which is a Raspberry Pi hat, which gives you a huge amount of high-quality audio for your Raspberry Pi. I don't know what I mean by a huge amount. It gives you high-quality audio for your Raspberry Pi. If you'd like to find out more about that, look at the link in the description of this video. There's a fantastic video and blog that Robin, our in-house gadget guru, made about it. But yes, we started a competition last week in the comment section to win one, and we're going to announce that winner right now. And the winner is Retro and Gaming, who left the hashtag IQDAC, who says, I'm rebuilding an old tube radio with all modern innards. This would be cool to boost the quality a bit. And I'm particularly happy, actually, that you were selected to win this week. All of the prize winners are always picked at random at Electromaker, in case you're wondering, only because this is one of the old projects that I used to do from time to time when I had a lot more time on my hands before I had children and things. And getting an old body of a completely broken radio and then putting new innards inside it and turning it into a Raspberry Pi web radio was one of my first kind of major Raspberry Pi projects that I did back in the day. So yes, I'm very glad that you have won this. Please do post that project up on the Electromaker website because I am itching to talk about an old retro refit project on the Electromaker show. And congratulations, we'll be in touch with you as to how we can get this out to you. More competitions, as always, are coming on Electromaker. But speaking of prize winners, it's time to look at the Electromaker of the Month winners for February 2022. Now, just a quick reminder, every single month, all the projects that go up on our project hub get passed on to a panel of judges who pick 3 to be the winners. First place wins $150, second wins $100, and third wins $50. And this time, we have a wonderful sponsor in the form of Koitech, who are sponsoring this project, who are the ones who are giving the cash prizes to you, our community. If you're not familiar with Koitech, they make amazing hardware and software, which allows you to analyze power and simulate batteries and a whole host of other things. You'll be hearing more about Koitech in the future on this show for sure. But for now, I'd just like to say thank you to Koitech for sponsoring us and letting us give you money for your wonderful project. I'm going to go through these quite quickly, but I'd like to point out that this blog post is linked in the description of the video, and clicking on the title of any one of these will take you to the actual project documentation themselves. I'm going to go through these relatively quickly, but I would like to point out that you can go to this blog post by heading to the description of this video and open each one of these projects by clicking on their titles to see the documentation of the makers themselves. In first place is Bahnhofssteuerung 2000, which is a project from, well, OX3B29, which is a Unicode character for something in simplified Chinese that Google Translate cannot translate, which is a very unique username. But the project itself is a really detailed and wonderful LED system for model trains. The idea here being is that you can set up multiple LEDs inside buildings and across the entire track. It's quite extendable and easy to use in various circumstances, which can all be controlled via a web UI. So congratulations OX3B29, you win $150 in cash and a big pile of Electromaker and Koitech swag. In second place is Ralph Yamatoto's Firebeetle 2 gas sensor, and I talked about this on a recent show. It's a special one for us at Electromaker because this is the first time that one of the prizes we've put out there into the community has come back as a project that has been built and then was chosen by the judges to win a prize, which is really nice because there's a lot of separate moving parts going on there. As I've mentioned many times in the past, I made a conscious choice early on to have no part in choosing winners for Electromaker of the Month because it just allows me to speak freely on the Electromaker show without worrying about people thinking I'm choosing people based on things that fit me, because if we did that, every month would just be music with microcontrollers and whatever makes a sound. But anyway, the Firebeetle 2 is an ESP32 based development board which has a display socket on it, which is why we have the display on the case there too. It's also using a gas sensor that works via I2C and has a battery built into it. Not only that, there is a Node Red UI on it as well. If you'd like to find out more, head to the link just here. Ralph has documented this project really wonderfully, going through every step of the hardware and the software and setting up Node Red. It's definitely worth a read. You're going to get some nice ideas for your project, even if it isn't a directly gas sensor project. It's a really nice template for setting up any kind of self-contained battery-powered smart home thing. And for getting second place, Ralph wins $100 in cash, and again, a pile of wonderful Electromaker and Koitech swag. Third place is a project from Moffa, who's come up with a PCB design that uses the Raspberry Pi Pico as the controller for Hub 75 displays. Now, Hub 75 displays are wonderful things. They're quite cheap to get. They have a great pixel density. If you're trying to get an idea of it in your mind, if you imagine those very small LED matrices that you get in Arduino starter kits, think that, but with more pixel density on a larger scale. But they can be quite hard to control. This takes that away completely. This is a PCB that a Raspberry Pi Pico fits into, and of course, then there are multiple libraries that work with MicroPython for Hub 75 displays, and one specifically for the Shield as well. And for winning third place, Moffa receives $50 and a pile of Electromaker and Koitech swag. And I forgot to say this all along, the biggest prize that all three of them win is the vaunted Electromaker of the Month certificate. There aren't that many of those going around, you know. So congratulations to all our winners. Thanks once again to our sponsor Koitech. And if you want to be in the chance of winning Electromaker of the Month, all you need to do is head to our project hub and click upload your project. You'll need a free Electromaker account to do it, but it only takes a couple of seconds to sign up. And we are interested in the documentation of your project. It doesn't have to be the most complex complicated project in the world. We just need to see that you have really put your time and effort into making something, that you care about it, and that you've really tried to document it well for other people with video or with text. We even have a guide on the Electromaker blog as to how to make a good submission post, and I'll include that link in the description as well. Anyway, congratulations to all our winners, and on with the show. It is time for funding website things, and we are heading back to Crowd Supply to look at the ESP32C6 bug. Now, I thought I had talked about this already earlier on in its funding campaign, maybe when it was pre-launch. I remember speaking about it in this room to this camera, but it doesn't exist on the internet, so I assume it got cut for time at some point. But to very quickly sum up what I said about it last time when I heard about it, it is a very capable small form factor board with an add-on board that gives it power over Ethernet. It works, from what I can see from the materials I've seen about it, it works pretty much for any smart home DIY usage you would want it to. It works with Zigbee and Thread and Matter. It can do Bluetooth Low Energy advertising at a very low power rate by using the light sleep function or the full Zigbee low power function, which is something crazy like 60 microamps or something like that. And it has very nice little case, as you're seeing in the video here. Anyway, the main reason I wanted to mention it again is that they are now in funding. They have already beaten their funding goal, but there's still 24 days left to get a hold of one of these yourself if you would like to. If I can't go through all of the features now, but a couple of the things that I really did like. As a general thing, I really like this board. This is the add-on board that comes with it. You slot the ESP32C6 board into the top of it. This has a power over Ethernet, isolated power over Ethernet in it, and a USB Type-C, so you can use it as the programmer instead of the board on top. And it also has a stemmer connector, which is very nice because it means you can attach things like sensors to it. I'm sure there's an image down here. Yeah, look, so this is with a sensor attached to it. And as you know, with stemmer things, you can chain them, or you can use like a hub, which gives you kind of one to many. So this pretty much opens you up to using as many I2C sensors with your board as you would like to, without having to do a lot of soldering and plugging and doing all the plumbing, which is always a very nice thing to get something up and running nice and quick. If you'd like to see examples of it working, there's absolutely no better place than the page itself, because they've got a huge amount of examples of it working with various different protocols. So, for example, this is low power Zigbee with that magical 60 microamp sleep power. A little further down, they have a Bluetooth Low Energy thing. Yeah, there's a video here showing how they have built-in battery support for Bluetooth Low Energy with an external crystal that allows light sleep to be used during Bluetooth Low Energy advertising, effectively dropping the power consumption to 200 microamps. And there was one other thing that I thought was definitely worth mentioning before moving on, but I cannot remember what it was. Oh, yes, it runs using the Arduino IDE. So you don't necessarily need to know how to program an ESP32 using the Espressive IDF or anything else like that. You can run it using the Arduino IDE. Of course, you can program it however you wish. Everything you need to know about it is here, all of the data sheets and the way it all fits together. So if you did want to completely make custom firmware from scratch, you could do that. But it is Arduino compatible, which is also very useful if you just want to get a prototype up and running nice and quickly. So this is now something that you can support. If you would like to support them, you can get the ESP32C6 board itself for $29, the ESP32 Bug Ethernet board for $34. So what are you looking at in total there? That's sort of $59, $63 for the whole kit. And just a quick reminder once again that yes, you can get cheaper development boards sent from the other side of the world that will work. There's nothing wrong with that. But to actually ship a really well thought out product like this that has all of the support that you're getting isn't necessarily cheap. And to my eyes, this is a bit of a bargain, actually. Anyhow, as always, I will leave a link to this in the description of the video, and if you are interested in it, have a look at all of the specs on there. If you're interested in just the raw specs, they do have them all listed here as well, although I imagine if you're already familiar with the chip, there's nothing else on here that you will find particularly surprising. Now, moving on to Tinko Hush. This is a pre-launch project, and I'm really quite excited by it. To give you a rundown of exactly what it is, there's one small section of this video I think I'll just play you. Now, as the title says, it's the world's first silent electroluminescent light engine designed for wearables, and this is the part of the video that really excited me. This is a microcontroller which is controlling 4 of these, and they are being used to control these beautiful electroluminescent lights, something that I've never really come across before. I've seen these lights used, but I never really thought about what they were. And this particular technology is called iron-on vinyl. This allows you to actually iron on lights to clothes. They are waterproof, they're weatherproof to an extent. Really quite exciting for anyone who's interested in wearables, but of course there are many other potential uses for it. But let's move on to the thing itself. It's a tiny little driver board like this. You can power it using USB-C, and you don't need to use a microcontroller or anything to control the lights. There's a button that you can press to turn it on or off. Or you can use a microcontroller to turn it on or off, or use PWM pulse width modulation in order to change the brightness as well. Now, this is the bit that I think is going to be interesting to some of us. Electroluminescence is the process of illuminating material using high voltage alternating current. Typically, it involves encapsulating a thin phosphor mixture and dielectric material between two electrodes, effectively forming a light-emitting capacitor. This technology enables the creation of thin and flexible illuminated shapes, commonly referred to as EL tape, EL panels, and EL wire. And I certainly do feel like, from the video footage I've seen of this, and I did a little bit more research, just looking not into how the electroluminescence works, but actually just looking at examples of it, because it has a very unique look to it. It doesn't look quite like normal LED strips do, and yeah, it's something that I'm very interested in finding out more about. Now, they do give, this is a pre-launch page, by the way, I should make that very clear. Now, this is not something that you can buy today. It will be going live at some point, and when it does go live, of course, we will revisit it as we do many projects. You can sign up for notifications about the project here as well, if you would like to. When you do sign up with your email to a crowd supply project to get more information about it, you receive more information from the project makers. It's not a general crowd supply thing. Crowd supply do have a newsletter, and it's really interesting because it gives you a rundown of all of the projects on the page. But this particular box is not subscribing to crowd supply as such. It's subscribing to this particular project. Now, there are a few other nice features of this that are worth mentioning. Like, for example, it has thermal shut-off and regulation, so it's never going to overheat on you, or at least it's never going to catch fire on you. If it does overheat, it will turn itself off. And it also has a certain amount of ruggedness to it. I think it says it can survive a 1 meter drop or something like that. Yeah, 1 meter drop. And funnily enough, this brings me to the fact that there's two quite nice visuals about both the Tinko Hush and the vinyl tape that it works with as well. So this is saying what it is. It drives up to 40 inches squared of EL panel or 240 in EL wire. And I'm assuming that means 240 inches? Oh yeah, 240 inch EL wire. That's not the smartest I've ever been. Not in EL wire, inch. They are externally controllable, as we've talked about, and they can use battery or wall power. And I'm guessing silent operation is a big deal because they do talk about it in this. I don't know enough about switching from DC to AC power and the challenges involved with running electroluminescent wire to know why that is important. If you do, please tell me in the comment section below. And then you have the vinyl itself, which is just such an interesting concept, something I'd like to come back to. I think when this project goes live on Crowd Supply, hopefully by that point I'll have learnt a little bit, and maybe even have got my hands on a little bit of this electroluminescent stuff, because yes, it really does appeal to me in a way that a lot of other wearable stuff, I love the idea of wearables, but I very rarely actually get involved with making anything out of it. But this is something that, especially as a runner, it'd just be great, just to be able to actually make my own custom designs that don't just reflect but light up. And even if it only worked for an hour or two, that's fine for most of my nighttime runs. You know what I mean? It's a nice idea. So we will be coming back to this project for sure, and if you would like to find out more about it, there'll be a link to it in the description, and you can sign up for email notifications from the team. For as long as there have been computers, people have been overclocking computers, and the Raspberry Pi 5 is absolutely not immune from this. The Raspberry Pi 5 is the latest in a long list of single-board computers that have been pushed to their highest degree, which is why I was not surprised in the least to see that Jeff Geeling has broken the 3 GHz barrier. I found this out via Alistair Allen's Twitter, and Alistair also mentions if you want to do it too, you'll first need to win the Silicon Lottery, because this will not work on every CPU that you get, just because of the way silicon is produced. You also need to grab the not very recommended at all firmware from GitHub. Good luck. Anyhow, I will keep this brief because I'm sure many of you who watch this channel also watch Jeff Geeling. But in short, he has managed to overclock the Pi to a degree that I did not think would be possible. He has had it working at up to 3.2 gigahertz, but not in a way that was sustainable. It would crash, and I think beyond that it wouldn't even boot. If I remember correctly, the sweet spot was around 3.14 gigahertz, and this is using a very specific and beefy cooling system that you can see right here. But yes, needless to say, the video takes you through everything you would need to do this yourself if you are feeling brave enough to do this yourself, including where to get the new firmware for the Broadcom chip on the Pi 5 and how to flash it and all that kind of stuff. And also it shows various tests of it working. So this is from 2.4 up to 3, from 3 to 3.1, to 3.3. Okay, so maybe 3.2 is... okay, back to 3.2. Maybe 3.2 is where it was at standard at the end. For some reason, I thought that he had to settle on 3.14. Maybe there's a note somewhere later that mentions that. Either way, it is always fascinating to see how far you can push things. The fact that the Pi 5 seems to be quite overclockable and stable, and the fact that there's a lot of different things that are working with the PCI slot. Again, Jeff Geeling is responsible for a lot of that. It is becoming a more and more exciting single-board computer. I don't know if this is just me, and feel free to tell me in the comments below if you think this is false. But I remember there being this huge moment between the Pi 3 and Pi 4 when people heralded the Pi 4 as being this huge thing that was such a massive step up. And that doesn't seem to be happening for the Pi 5. But from what I'm seeing here, the Pi 5 is a monumental jump in what you can do with a single-board computer between the 4 and the 5, given that they're still so very cheap. Anyway, that's just me waffling. I've been a big fan of this kind of geekery for years. I'm sure you have too. And I'll leave a link to Jeff's video and Alistair's tweet in the description of this video. We're going to move on to Rockchip and an effort to reverse engineer the neural processing units on their system on chips so that there can be an open source way of interacting with them. Now, this is something that I was completely unaware of until today. Tomio Vizoso has been working on the NPU in Linux for a while. And this is the beginning of their journey into the Rockchip system on chips, because so the Rockchip system on chips, for those who may not be familiar with them, they're in the Rock Pi, they're in the Orange Pi. Most Raspberry Pi competitor single-board computers have a Rockchip in them these days due to their wide availability and the amount of processing power you get for the cost. But you'll also find them in a lot of retro gaming handhelds for the same reason. They're very powerful, but they're very cheap. They just seem like they make really solid system on chips. What I didn't know is that the Rockchip driver for the NPU is not ideal. I haven't seen that many AI projects using Rockchip chips, and that's probably why. Rockchip chips? Rockchip system on chips, and that's probably why. If you'd like to know the full gory details, this first article by Michael Larabelle on Phoronix is a really good starting point. But the main link I think most people are going to be interested in is jumping right out to the blog post. Yeah, at the bottom here there's a link to Tomeo's blog, goes over the first attempt at reverse engineering the NPU. And it appears that due to help from a few other people here, and the fact that the NPU was based heavily on NVIDIA's NVDLA open source NPU IP, which I know nothing about, I just read the blog post, it looks like there's actually a little bit of progress already. And I do find this wonderful. If you would like to find out more about it, this is the blog. You can find it linked from here. I will be bookmarking this blog so I can come back to it and follow up. And I'd like to go back and read a little bit more about other reverse engineering attempts, because to me, the concept of reverse engineering a neural processing unit is wild. It might as well be wizardry. It is a higher level of engineering that I can quite comprehend, and it is very interesting to hear about. And also, things like this have real value, because if you do manage to get an open source driver working for the NPU that does not have the limitations that are mentioned here for the proprietary drivers, then that opens up the entire system on chip to a new audience. It allows not just kind of hobbyists like me to use it, but it'll also mean that that's going to have wider uses across the industry, because engineers like it when things are easy to use. It doesn't really matter whether you're an incredibly complex systems engineer or someone who's starting out. Good documentation and things that work the way you expect them to is a good thing. So I really enjoy the fact that people are trying to take things that already exist and make them better. And I wonder if we're going to see a swath of AI projects based on Rockchip's system on chips once this is done. By the time this video goes live, it will very nearly be Arduino Day, or Arduino Days 2024. This year, from March 21st to 23rd, there are a huge variety of talks and seminars covering a variety of things to do with Arduino. But just at the very start here, if you are interested in this, you don't need to sign up or anything. I will leave a link to this splash page in the description of the video, and you can click on day 1, day 2, or day 3. And for example, day 3 here shows you, there's the YouTube streaming link. There's a day 2 here as well. If you click the streaming link, you can already actually click to be notified on YouTube as well about it. So if you are worried that you might forget about it, you can set up notifications that way. Anyway, what are they actually going to be talking about? Well, there's a huge amount of different subjects and topics. I'm pretty sure anyone who's been interested in Arduino will find something they're interested in. So things like the Blues Wireless folks are going to be there to talk about things. Zephyr will be there to talk about Arduino and Zephyr. But there's also things like projects, which I find very interesting. There was an amp simulator that I found. Yeah, here we go. Machine Learning Amp Simulator with Portenta X8. There's no further information on that right now, other than it is happening. And I'm really interested to know what that is, given that amp simulation is one of the DSP problems that I've been learning about recently. And of course, we talked about it fairly recently with Eli Hughes' wonderful guitar shield thing that picks up everything a guitar does and simulates it while saving the data. There's also going to be projects from the Arduino community dotted in and out here, which haven't been announced quite yet, but also things like, one of the things I noticed was how you can get how you can know Arduinos are going to be more reliable than other boards that you might buy because of the in-house testing that they do on them, which is a very interesting thing. It's not something you necessarily think about all that much. The quality control on the parts you are getting, we're very used to looking for the cheapest available thing rather than the more reliable thing, which is a mistake that you only make once in a professional setting, I imagine. But there's also some very interesting things about education as well. I noticed that one of the talks is about a team of people trying to educate girls in Ghana using Arduino and get them into tech, which I think is just a wonderful idea. Because whether someone ends up working in the tech field or not, the skills that you acquire programming embedded hardware, the physical putting it all together and the tactile side of it and the mental side of logically working out how a program works are skills that you can apply to a vast variety of things in life. I think it's a wonderful idea. Anyway, I was supposed to give this a quick shout out and I got a little bit too deep, didn't I? But if you would like to find out more, head to the link in the description of this video and you can link out to the Arduino Days, which are beginning in, well, 3 days as I record this. That has been our show for this week. Thank you so much for joining me and thank you for your continued support, whether that's here on YouTube by doing the whole like and subscribe stuff or shopping in the Electromaker store. I did notice on last week's video that once again someone mentioned that these videos are somewhat more pleasant if played at a slightly slower speed. I've made a bit of an effort to speak a little bit slower in this show. It's a really difficult balance to get correct because I'm so excited and I just love talking about this stuff and naturally talk quite quickly. I do understand that is not so simple for people who have English as a second language. It's an issue I run into in my daily life, given that I do not live in England, I live in Germany, where most other people who speak to me in English are also using their second language. You'd think I'll have learned by now. But yes, I hope this was a slightly easier pace to understand for some folks. I'm always interested in specifics like that, because the most important thing for me is that this show is enjoyable to watch, and on a week where even maybe the content isn't directly part of your interests, that it's still something that is legible to you and enjoyable to watch. Because I know it's very difficult to understand something that you are not particularly into in a language that is not yours. I live in Germany. It is a common problem. So yes, thank you so much for joining me. I will be back with you next week with a fresh show. I hope you have a fun, safe and creative week, and I'll speak to you then.